in the tough, rough world of gypsy bare knuckle fighting, we find it fascinating to find some of the UK's hardest men. But here again, in part two, I bring you UK's toughest brothers. Right, in part two, who we're focusing on, it is the Gray brothers, born in Fife in Scotland. Georgie, Tommy, Richard. Yeah, so let's start with oldest brother, Tommy Gray. Tommy, 9 years as an amateur, fighting for Scotland on numerous occasions. Around the 200 amateur fights, turned professional, and an excellent professional he was, yeah. But these boys, continuing this story, these boys weren't only boxers, they were serious knuckle fighters. Tommy, as a teenager, had beaten a cousin, I think his name was Johnny Smith, who was a professional British champion. Yeah, so he could do it outside, and he turned professional, and he was swimmingly away, a fantastic career. He's actually come down to London, and it was the crash and bashing Terry Downs that managed him, and he got off to a really good start. He won more professional fights in his first year than any other professional in the UK. He won 13 from 15 fights, but he reversed 2 defeats. Yeah, and it was potentially a year with the fantastic Terry Downs managing him where the problem lied for Tommy, because he was up there and out there, hugely successful, and he kept pestering and badgering Terry Downs for a British title shot, an area title shot, and Terry kept refusing. So we're going to go back door, get the experience, and creep back into the limelight that way. So he was good enough to be British champion because he'd beaten Ronnie off, a former British champion, with ease over 8 rounds. He see off Ronnie, who was an exceptionally good fighter, and he was there. But what happened? The real disappointing side here is the bad management of Terry Downs by his own ambitions, which I'll come to. As he fought number 5 for the world challenger, Yoan Keys, number 3 challenger, Pierre Fureux, and a number 1 challenger for the world title. And he was just a boy of 21 years of age, and he went the other side of the world, twice South Africa and to Australia. Now, he had beaten Keys and got completely robbed. Seen the scrapbooks on that one. Pierre Fureux, he had a fantastic fight. It was deemed one of the best fights I've ever seen in South Africa, but he lost fair and square on points by his own ambitions. This guy was like number 3 in the world, and he travelled all the way to Australia to fight Tony Mundine, in which he lost. But the story I love about Tommy, before we move on to the other 2 brothers, I really like this one. He had a cousin called Freddie. He had a bar in Benalmádena in Spain, on the Costa del Sol, just outside of Malaga, which I'd been in the bar myself. And there was a fighter called Johnny Cook, who was, I think he was British, European and Commonwealth champion. And this Scouse fella based in the bar in Benalmádena where Tommy was living, he kept on going, oh, my mate from Liverpool was Johnny Cook. And Tommy said, I had a really close fight with Johnny, it could have won either way. And Johnny got the decision. And yeah, you loser, you bum and all this, because Tommy liked a light owl and he used to busk around with a guitar. He was a professional musician. He made some fantastic songs, which I'll come to that a little bit in the story as well. But what had happened, this guy really goaded Tommy, and he was just a calm soul, Tommy, and just he knew he'd boxed Johnny Cook and then just let it go over his head, but it was a bit frustrating, heating him up inside. And one really quiet evening in the bar, this Scouse bloke on there, Tommy obviously wasn't very fond of, was in there, and who will come through the doors was former world champion Terry Downs, of course, Tommy's manager. And he says, Tommy, and this bloke just run straight up, you know, in awe of Terry Downs. Terry Downs, how you doing? And lovely to meet you. I'm a fan of boxing, and you know, I love all what you stand for and all this. And so when it all just calmed and dampened down, a few drinks had taken place, and Terry Downs said to this Scouse fella that kept goading and didn't believe Tommy, he said, see, this man, if I'd been a good manager, this man would have been champion of the world. Fact, period, no doubt. And the Scouse just went whoop, and Tommy was time to get his own back. I told you I could fight. I told you how good I was, but you didn't believe me. Now you believe Terry Downs. Do you believe Terry? Yeah, I believe Terry's right. And you should have believed me, because I had a really close fight with your mate Johnny Cook. Trust me. Anyway, so that was Tommy, being a British champion outside, a real talent, a lovely, lovely man. Had a real privilege to have as a friend. Now let's move on to Georgie Gray, little one. Now Georgie, a different kettle of fish. Tommy dark hair, Georgie blonde hair. Ain't got too many images. Got some of the boys, got a bit more on Tommy. Some of the boys when they're younger, but didn't particularly look like brothers. Because one's father was dark, the mother was mother was fair, father was dark. So it was like opposites in that sense. But two really good boxers. But Tommy's stuff lay outside. A very good boxer, very good professional boxer. I went and challenged the South African champion, Cozy Smith, an heavyweight. I went 10 rounds with him, beat 17 stone heavyweight, Graham Signs, unbeaten at the time. Again, managed by Downs, chucked really hard in the deep end, ended up with 75 professional fights, a huge amount of fights. But Georgie's stuff lay better outside the ring. It was actually leading, to give you some idea where we're coming to with the knuckle fighting, leading main sparring partner for Bob Foster, the great Bob Foster, when he fought Chris Finnegan. So he comes to England, Bob Foster, and there's only two meaningful southpaws in the country. I think Georgie's rated about number 7 or 6, and Chris is number 1. And he leads with the right hand, of course, instead of the left hand, and he was eyed. And to underline, the press was all around him, and I said, what do you think, Bob, of Britain? And of course, Bob Foster is the greatest light heavyweight ever lived. There's never been another one like him before or since. There's little or any argument to that. What do you think of Britain's Georgie Gray? Britain's Georgie Gray, he said, just listen to me, this man is so brave, he's too brave for his own use. Right, so I'll give you some idea how brave he was, right? Now, he managed to appear, because they fife in Scotland, they did make their way to London, England and Southend-on-Sea, but they had some time in Liverpool, where Georgie would end up living and seeing his days through. He managed to appear at just 16 years of age, and a local, I don't know, we might call them steroids, a local lump, yeah, hard guy of the pier in Liverpool, at this time, comes bullying and trying to push Georgie around, and bear in mind his manager. So he says, right, you want to fight? And the bully's like 21, 22, and Georgie's just a boy of 16. And Tommy said, you get your man, you get your man. So on the pier they went, and Georgie went out and has absolutely obliterated him. Absolutely done the business on him. The way went the bully, and Georgie continued managing, doing a man's job as a boy, the pier, successfully, until such time he didn't want to manage it anymore. And another really good story, British heavyweight champion Danny McLean, yeah, a dangerous Dan from Birmingham, had a sparring session with Georgie, and as I said, Georgie had some success with heavyweights. He, I think he either reached the final of a knockout heavyweight, but he's a light heavyweight, you put a few coins in your pocket in them days. He either reached a final, actually won it, I think, on the way up he beat Graham Signs, and he's just outboxed Danny McLean. And they go into the changing rooms, locker rooms, having a shower or whatnot. And Danny's got his tail between his legs, and he says, "Yeah, but I was better up, I'm better man out in the cobbles, me." And Georgie says, "Yeah," without any hesitation. "Yeah," he said, "and that's my game. I'm much better," he said. "I can up it out there on the cobbles. That's my place." Yeah, so even the likes of Danny McLean and British heavyweight champions, he was ready up for it, and people parted them and calmed it down, but he was ready and up for it. But probably the favourite story of all, Tommy was a musician, loved his music, as I said, to busk around. Tommy had written a song called Gypsy Boy. Yeah, he probably made a few songs. I think he made about 3 or 4 songs, actually official records, on the old vinyls. And it was called Gypsy Boy. Really a lovely worded song for not only for gypsies, but for to give the non-gypsy, the gorger person, an insight. But he went round Appleby Fair selling it for £1 a copy in 1978. Well, you remember George was still an active professional fighter. Tommy had retired at this stage, but George was the knuckle man, and he was an active professional fighter right up until 1980. So 1978, he said, "What we'll do, bruv, we'll go up to Appleby, yeah? Right, now being a Scottish fella, he's sort of more of his part of the world, although it's North England. So we'll go round there and we'll sell some copies, £1 each, 1978. So he goes in, go around and selling a few copies, and they're doing okay. And suddenly what happens, one fella turns around and says, look at them pair of Dinlows, them cranks, them gorger fools, meaning not gypsy people. And Tommy tells the story. He says, Georgie turns to the whole pub, pulls off his shirt. He said, into a fearsome sight, not an ounce of fat anywhere, still a trained, hardened, professional fighter that loved it out there. He said, you call me and my brother a pair of gorgeous Dinlows. Is there any man in this pub wants to come out and see how Dinlow I am and have a go with me? And Tommy said, leave it, Georgie said, no, come on, who fancies it? And Tommy said, I promise faithfully to one man. He said, there's not a man on Appleby here that'll tame my brother today, I promise you that. And the way they went out the pub, pride intact with their records, they sold some more and they had a good day. But that was such as Georgie. A lovely, lovely man. I had the privilege of meeting Georgie a few occasions. A real gentleman. I remember his dad telling him that he had to behave himself. He's probably in his 50s at this stage. And he's speaking to his dad just like a little, yes, my daddy, yeah, whatever you say, absolutely, my daddy. It was like his dad was talking to a 7-year-old, a gentle man. That was a brutal man. You could see the hard, beaten face. As I say, I'm sorry I can't bring more images of Georgie, but he was a lovely man and a brutal man. So that brings us with the youngest brother, Richard. Now, Richard, I had the pleasure of meeting on 2 or 3 occasions. A quiet man. He was as wide, heavyweight boxer. He was as wide, almost as tall. He's probably one of the smallest heavyweights you'd ever see. He probably stood around 5'8", but he was this wide. Yeah, do you remember the alligator, the guy that used to run around with Mike Tyson in his day? He was almost like that type of stamp, that wide. And how good was he? Well, I found some clippings where he's been national champion here. Some believe he was the best of the 3. He didn't turn professional. He had some fights out the ring. He took care of himself without any problem. Almost an unassuming character in appearance, yeah. But he was an heavyweight, as I say. He was so short, but he was an heavyweight for a reason, because he was like a tank. And but it's the fact that he was a national champion on numerous occasions, arguably the best fighter of the 3, didn't turn professional, but used to spar with John Conte in the Liverpool days and do the business on John Conte when they were amateurs, but approaching seniors, absolutely. He found his way around the ring as a short guy, obviously getting inside and over the top, and he could do it. But this is the story of the Gray brothers, fantastic people. I'm really privileged to have met them. Tommy was a real close friend of mine, flew all the way back from Spain to sing at my wedding, as in this picture. Sadly, the most unfortunate thing of this, neither of them made old bones. Tommy died in Spain in his 50s, I believe. Georgie, because it was Tommy, Georgie, and about 2 years here. Georgie died in Liverpool in his 50s, I believe, and so sadly, as did Richard. I think he was around the Liverpool area as well. But hope some of his family are out there. I've not been in touch with them much. In fact, I've lost contact. But if you are, please leave a comment. Hope you've enjoyed this. Would these have been 3 of the toughest gypsy men in their time? If you went 3-on-3 in a car park with them, blimey, we'd need 3 other tough brothers to get the better of them. Or if we had a best of 3, first to win 2, you might dig out one winner. You'd really struggle to win 2 if you got one there. They were really hard men in the ring and out, but lovely men, more importantly. Thanks for tuning in. I hope you've enjoyed this part 2. Remember to catch up on part 1 if you haven't. The Frankham brothers, yes, John, Randy, and of course Sam. If you haven't listened to part 1, it's part 2. Thanks for tuning in, Chrissy TV. In the meantime,